Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you've ever stood at the front of a classroom and wondered how on earth to bridge the gap between complex math concepts and students who are literally still mastering the English language, well, you are in the exact right place. Today, we're going to unpack some absolutely crucial, evidence-based strategies to make math accessible, rigorous, and just plain engaging for every single learner. Let's get right into it.
So let's kick things off with a question that kind of challenges a really common instinct. When an English language learner, an ELL student, is struggling in your math class, what's your first move? Should you just simplify the math? Honestly, it's a super common teacher reflex to sort of dumb down the material when a kid is having a hard time with the language. We think we're doing them a solid by making the task easier, right? Well, let's explore why that is actually the exact wrong move to make.
Because, as our source material emphatically points out, simplifying or removing the language can actually strip away valuable opportunities to learn. Lowering our expectations? Yeah, that actually harms students. Instead of diluting the math, we need to keep it rigorous and challenging, while systematically tearing down those language barriers that are getting in the way. Basically, we want to test their mathematical proficiency, not their English fluency.
In this explainer, we're going to cover rethinking the diverse classroom, unlocking funds of knowledge, culturally responsive math instruction, specific strategies for EL students, and finally, the power of diagnostic interviews.
First up, rethinking the diverse classroom.
You know, historically, students from different countries or those who speak different languages have sometimes been viewed as, well, a hurdle to overcome in the classroom. We've got to flip that narrative completely. We need to start viewing their varied languages and backgrounds as a massive, rich resource. To really do this, we have to actively tap into a student's funds of knowledge. This is the essential, everyday knowledge that these kids use to survive and thrive in their own lives. When we tap into this, we're sending a loud and clear message. I value your culture, I want to know about you, and I absolutely expect you to excel in high-level math. It's all about building a solid bridge between their lived experiences and your curriculum.
That brings us to our second section, culturally responsive mathematics instruction.
Now, culturally responsive mathematics instruction, or CRMI for short, is definitely not just another educational buzzword. It's an incredible approach that beautifully weaves together mathematical thinking, language, and culture. And the best part? It applies to all students and has been proven to lift performance across the board. It essentially boils down to four main pillars. First, communicating high expectations. Ask yourself, are your students really engaging in problem solving and generating their own approaches? Second, making content relevant. Is the math actually tied to familiar aspects of their daily lives? Third, attending to their mathematical identities, meaning, do your students truly believe they are capable mathematicians? And fourth, ensuring shared power. This means the students, not just you as the teacher, are actively sharing, justifying, and evaluating ideas.
Moving right along to Section 3, Practical Strategies for ELL Students.
All right, so we've got this great high-level paradigm, but how do we actually bring these big ideas down to earth for our daily classroom action? Let's look at some very specific strategies you can literally use tomorrow. First off, honor their native languages. A great way to do this is by allowing code switching, where bilingual kids can fluidly bounce between two languages during group work. It's amazing because it actually supports mathematical reasoning. They can just pick the language that best expresses their thought in that moment. Also, we absolutely have to explicitly teach academic math vocabulary. Think about it. Words like numerator or denominator don't really come up in a kid's everyday chat, so they need intentional, intensive instruction.
We also need to provide what's called comprehensible input. In plain English, this just means tweaking how we speak so our message lands perfectly. Instead of giving a long, rambling instruction like, okay, everyone, take out your math books, flip past the glossary, and skip the first 3 pages, just simplify it. Pare down the sentence structure, ditch the non-essential words, add some physical gestures or visual cues like simply writing the page number on the board while pointing. The expectation hasn't dropped an inch, but you've completely removed the barrier to entry.
But hey, what happens when it comes time to assess our students? This is a huge trap that so many of us fall into. We have to be absolutely certain we're testing a student's math skills, not their reading comprehension. And to pull that off, we have to consciously limit the linguistic load of the word problems we throw at them.
Let's look at a real concrete example. Imagine this super wordy problem. Melissa is making bracelets. She needs 6 strands of rope to make 1 bracelet. Each strand is 1 1/4 feet long. Melissa wants to make 8 bracelets for her friends. How many feet of rope does Melissa need? Now, an ELL student might completely bomb this task. But, and this is key, they might not fail because they don't get fractions or multiplication. They might fail simply because they tripped over all those confusing pronouns and dense, unnecessary story details.
So how do we fix this linguistic overload? We systematically streamline the problem. First, just shorten the sentences. Easy. Second, yank out tricky pronouns like she or they, because those can easily confuse non-native speakers. Third, add specific reference so the student knows exactly what object we're talking about at all times. And lastly, here is a pro tip. Stick to one single context, like making those bracelets, for the entire lesson. That way students aren't getting bogged down in a brand new backstory every 5 minutes.
All right, apply those rules, and here is our shiny new edited version. Melissa is making 8 bracelets. She needs 6 strands of rope for 1 bracelet. How many feet of rope does Melissa need? See the difference? That shows exactly what limiting linguistic load looks like in the real world. The math is just as rigorous, they still have to crunch the numbers and find the relationships, but the language is instantly accessible. Now you're actually testing math, not English decoding skills.
Which brings us to our final section, the incredible power of diagnostic interviews.
You know how it is, large-scale tests are great at telling us a kid got an answer wrong, but they almost never tell us why. That's where diagnostic interviews come in. These are super brief, maybe 3 to 10-minute one-on-one sessions where you sit down with a student and use a show-me approach. You look over their written work and just ask them to explain their strategy. Because think about it, when ELLs miss a question, it is so easy to assume they lack the mathematical understanding, when really it might just be a language hiccup. These quick little interviews uncover those hidden strengths and pinpoint the exact conceptual or linguistic gaps. It's a real game changer.
Now, the do's and don'ts for running these interviews are pretty strict. First, you have to keep a poker face. Avoid revealing if the answer is right or wrong with your expression or your tone. Second, just wait silently. Give them plenty of time to translate the thoughts in their head. Third, and I know how much this pains us as teachers, do not give in to the temptation to teach or correct their spelling. Remember, this is an assessment, not a lesson. And finally, let them explain their strategy, using their own words without interrupting them.
So that leaves us with one final, absolutely crucial question to reflect on as you plan your own assessments. When you look at the grades of your diverse students, are you truly testing their mathematical proficiency, or are you just measuring their English fluency? By unlocking their funds of knowledge, providing that comprehensible input, and cutting down the linguistic load, we can finally make sure that every single student gets an equitable opportunity to show us the brilliant math they're truly capable of. Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and hey, I challenge you to try just one of these strategies in your classroom this week.